Thank you for watching Crossing Paths. I'm Don Reed Sr. from Hermitage, Pennsylvania. I'm the founder, and my co-host here is Ron Kosar, and we have a guest today. Ron's going to introduce him, but it's always what we call crossing paths with different people. And we do, and I don't take too much time on this, but we thank you for those who are supporting us because, you know, it takes money to run an operation here. Amen. And if you could send us $7 a month or one check for $77, you could become a partner. We appreciate that. But you know what? That's not what we're here for today. We're here to tell you what Jesus Christ can do in a man's life. He can change lives. How do I know? I know from my life. I don't know about your life, anybody else's life out there, but I know that I know that I know. And you ask me if I'm going to heaven, I'm going to go to heaven, people. I'm going to praise the Lord. For 44 years, I just thank the Lord every day. I got up every morning, I pray, my feet hit the ground. I always pray before I get out of bed. And I want to tell you something today. Listen to this gentleman's story, too, how God's using him. Ron, you met this gentleman, right?
Absolutely. I found out our paths have crossed years ago. And that's why it's very important, you know, never burn your bridges, build good relationships in your lives. But hey, I want to give a shout out to all the people today in Hermitage, Pennsylvania, West Newton, Sutersville, Wino, Yukon. We're going to put you guys on the map today. Amen. People are thinking, where is that at? What's a wino? Not the wino that drinks. We're talking about a town called Wino. So you guys out there, get on the phone, call your friends and family, check today's show out. It's going to be extremely powerful. But yeah, my paths have crossed with Chris several years ago. And I'm just like I do. I'm not going to steal his thunder whatsoever. I'm going to hand the ball off to him now. And I'm going to let him tell you about how he came to know Christ as his Lord and Savior. And then later in the show, we're going to get into what he's doing now in his life. But go ahead, Chris. So tell us a little bit about your life and how you became to know Jesus. And
Well, Ron, my story is a little different. I know that I know Don a little bit about his basketball past and some of that. But I grew up in a house where we were more of a music and arts kind of a thing. That was our focus. I have my older sister, God rest her soul. She was a piano teacher her whole adult life. We lived a few doors down from a woman who taught piano. She taught my brother and taught my older sister. And then when it was my turn, I wasn't interested in the piano and I turned to the drums. And that was kind of my thing. That was my outlet and my passion. And from an early age, I always thought that's what I would do. So I have memories as a kid of being a drummer, putting bands together, playing in the basement or the garage, or if somebody knew how to play an instrument, somehow we would end up dragging all of our equipment over and doing something. And that just kind of went all the way through high school, into college, where actually I met my wife. And even after we were married, I continued to do that, and we toured locally and then began to do that regionally. My wife, on the other hand, was a scholarship swimmer. She went to Pitt on a full ride, and her freshman year, which was just before I met her, she had an injury to her hand. She had a problem with a bone in her wrist. It was moving in and out of a place, and she ended up going to see one of the Steelers' doctor, Freddie Fu. And he realized that she had something going on with her wrist, and they soon diagnosed that she had this joint issue that was beginning to develop, and there was a breakdown of her joints that was going on. So when I actually first met her, she had already stopped swimming and had a series of surgeries on her wrist, and it was fused completely. Now, you kind of fast forward to that. I was still playing out. We were both working, building a life. We were married at 22. We waited about 5 years and we had our first child, our daughter. And when our daughter was born, I was still playing out I had a full-time job during the day, and in the evenings I would play out. And mostly I'd be home on Sundays.
Were you going to church anywhere? Or
No. We were both raised Catholic and in really good families.
Yeah,
both of us went to Catholic school growing up. She lived in the North Hills of Pittsburgh. I lived over in the East in Forest Hills. And we had parents that were still to this day, my parents who were married. My dad's birthday was just a couple days ago. I think 5 or 6 years ago, we celebrated their 50th anniversary.
Praise the Lord.
But our parents were, it was a good, solid. It feels like a long time ago. It's like a storied television childhood that we had. It was a great life. We never wanted for anything, both she and I. But
because a lot of the people that watch our show, they think your testimony has to be something terrible.
Oh yeah, you're in the bottom of the
terrible.
pit.
Yeah.
Now now my passion was playing the drums, and we would do that. I would do that, and I pursued that, and that was something that was a little bit out of control in my life, because I put that first. I had a plan for me, and that's what I was going to do. And when it got to the point where we were getting ready to travel across the country, the guys that I was playing with asked me to leave the band.
Well,
And they were the band that I actually picked all the members from, and we traveled around. And I realized that the faith that I had in them, they didn't have in me. And I found myself, they said, well, you have a wife and you have a child and I said, don't worry about all that. I'll take care of that. I'll manage that. And that's what I was doing. My ambition was the thing that was most important to me. But they didn't give up. They said, no, you're done.
so you guys were playing in bars, nightclubs, this and that? It was
Anywhere
nothing to do
they
with
would let
acres?
us. Our last place we played was what was the old Star Lake Amphitheater.
Okay, yeah.
And so we had, actually, I didn't get to do that one because they kicked me out right before we did that, but we had just about done everything in that place. Well, meanwhile, when my daughter was born, my wife got a new job working at one of the hospitals in town. She had a degree from Pitt, and we were looking for something for her to do, and things started to kind of come unraveled in our lives. And she was getting sicker and sicker. She would go to work during the day, but on the weekends she would come home and she would just rest all weekend. I'd take care of our daughter, and for her it was kind of a new season because I was home all the time, whereas I was never there. So now I had this great relationship with my daughter, but I had a very, very sick wife. But it seemed like God was beginning to work because the woman that sat immediately to the right of my wife at work was my current pastor's wife. They actually had expanded the department she worked in, and they were hired together. Well, my wife went on this journey of faith, and Pastor Lisa from House of Faith, she'll say, Pam would come in every day and say, ask her new questions. She knew she'd see her tomorrow, so she made a long-term investment in growing her in the faith. And over that period of about 2 years, she came to faith. And she can't really describe it. She doesn't have that moment.
Right.
But what we found out was they were building a church, and they kept inviting us to this church they were building, and I didn't want anything to do with it. I wanted nothing to do with religion or God or any of that kind of stuff. Well, she began to have seizures in the middle of the night, and her hand they were tonic seizures, her hand would clench up, so we went to see a neurologist. Meanwhile, her joint issue was becoming more and more severe. We got to the point where we lived in this little row house in East Pittsburgh that we bought, and she could go up the stairs, but physically she couldn't manage the strength to go down. It was too painful.
Wow.
So to come down the stairs, she would just sit down, and she would slide down one stair at a time until she got to the bottom. Now, we knew we wanted to have more children, and we knew we had a plan. I was working for a new home builder at the time, so we had even got some plans for a one-level house because her doctor said she'll be able to have a baby, but she'll be able to carry the baby in her belly, but won't be able to physically hold the baby. So that day, she came bounding down the stairs on a Saturday when she normally is sleeping all day, and she said, I think I got healed. They've been praying for me at this little church, House of Faith. And they have church on Saturday nights, and they've been inviting us out, and I've been asking them to pray for me. And she ran up and down the stairs, and I remember having that minute of clarity, and I said, okay, we had a whole plan of how life was going to work out for us. I had a plan as a drummer, I had a plan as a husband, and providing the home that we thought we were going to need.
That's awesome.
And if God just reshuffled the deck, because I didn't really want anything to do with religion at that point, then what kind of a person would that make me if I didn't go with her? So I went that night to House of Faith. And the message that night was about Jesus out on the water, and that his disciples were in a boat, and they saw him. It's not where Peter got out of the boat, but it was the other account. And what ends up happening was Jesus came, and they said, first they thought he was a ghost, and then they thought perhaps it was Jesus, and they said, if it's you, Jesus, come into the boat. And they made room in the boat. And that message that night was, will you make room? If that's really God out there, if it's really him, will you make room? And I did. And my life changed at that moment.
Wow, Chris, can you hold that just a minute? Because we're going to go to, Ron's going to show you what happens when you become a Christian and all the problems you have before and after. And it's something to think about. We'll be right back. And I'm wondering one thing about this. I want you, when you get back, to come down that thing, because a lot of people don't realize today, they think that going to church is going to be the same. And thank God your parents are raised in the Catholic Church, and they were good parents and they raised you. But they still have to be born again. So we'll come right back, and he's going to tell the rest of his story right now. So we'll be right back.
Hi, on today's show on Something to Think About, we're going to be talking about how you can overcome adversity. Now listen, I'm going to tell you one thing about life right now, without even me knowing you. You're coming out of a trial, a tribulation, or an adversity in your life. You're presently in one, or you're going to go into one. And that's just life. See, so many people get tied up in the devil's after me, and this is happening and that's happening. But listen, Paul talked about being content in all things. And listen, the Bible tells us that we got to be an overcomer. So I think it's time for us as Christians to man up, and we're not supposed to be a bunch of sissies running around like the devil's always beating us up. I remember a friend of mine, he came to me one day and he was all upset and he said, hey, Pastor Ron, the devil's chasing me, the devil's beating me up. And I said, well, why is that? And he said, I had a flat tire, I was late for work and this and that. And I said, well, as long as I've known you, I said, I can't ever remember you getting new tires on that truck. I said, how many miles did that truck have on it anyway, those tires? And he said, well, about 50,000 miles. I said, brother, you shouldn't be saying the devil's after you because you finally had a flat tire. You should be giving God thanks because your tires went for 50,000 miles. So see, it's a lot on how we look at things. I mean, we need to see that glass as being half full, not half empty, because we give the devil way too much credit. Amen? So listen, I'm going to talk today about how you overcome adversity. And if you have your Bibles at home, and you know this if you tune in on the show to this part, please turn in Philippians 4. We'll start out in verse 1. It says, therefore, my beloved longed-for brethren, my joy and my crown, so stand fast in the Lord, beloved. Now listen, the Bible talks a lot about standing fast or standing firm. A lot of people are running here and there all the time. They're running after this, they're running after that. You can't get anybody to sit still anymore for anything. I mean, I could just see God up there in heaven. He sends down an angel to talk to you. And by the time he gets to where he was dispatched, you're over here at another location. So we're supposed to stand firm in the Lord. I mean, there's power in that. And then it says this, if you go to verse 6, it says, be anxious for nothing. Listen, that's the first point today. We're going to have basically 5 points. The first point is be anxious for nothing. So many of us get unraveled and twisted up in the affairs of the life. And like I said, you're worried about a flat tire, or listen, if the hot water tank breaks, you could be happy or you could be sad. You could be mad about that. But listen, it's not going to change the fact that your hot water tank is still broke. No matter what, if you got a flat tire, you could be happy or sad. It's not going to change the tire for you. So what I'm saying is sometimes you just got to get out there and get the job done. Don't be anxious about anything, part 1. But part 2, but in everything with prayer. Listen to this. In everything by prayer and supplication. People don't even know how to pray today. Maybe you've not even prayed to God. So I encourage you every single day. Listen, a lot of you know how close I am to Don Reed. If I go anywhere with him on a trip or we're traveling to do television shows, he has me up about 4 in the morning to do a Bible study every time. So we need to start out and know how to pray. Know how every day should be, how you should start every day. Then it says, with thanksgiving, let your requests be known unto God. So many of us are always asking God for this and asking God for that, but we're never giving God thanks. Could you just imagine what it'd be like to just go to God and say, Jehovah, thank you for everything. You're my provider. You're my Jehovah Jireh. You provide for everything. Don't you think it would get God's attention, and he'd say, hey, there's a son or a daughter of mine that just really loves me. They're not always just asking me for stuff. And that's the way God, I'm sure, sees a lot of us. We're always just asking him. So it says, with thanksgiving, let our requests be made known unto God, and then the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, it will guard our hearts and our minds through Christ Jesus. So listen, that's how you become an overcomer. You have the don't be anxious for anything. You know how to pray. You be thankful unto God. You tie on to the peace of God, what surpasses all understanding. That's what guards our hearts and minds in Christ Jesus. I mean, just think about that. If the church could grab a hold of that, and we could be who God has called us to be, and be thankful in all things. So listen, understand this. We love you, and let's get back to the show.
Thank you, Ron, for that message there. Overcoming adversities. All of us have problems in our lives. And I want to get back real quickly because, man, oh man, his wife was sickness, and God uses different ways of getting to people. So yeah. I'm just telling you, Chris, must have been a real change in her or something. How did that happen?
Well, it was that quick. I mean, I was just sitting in the seat. I was listening and reflecting on the message, reflecting on the day, reflecting on the idea that God would reshuffle our lives in a moment, in spite of how I saw myself or what my concerns were. His plans and purposes for me were much greater than anything I expected, right? It says in the book of Ephesians that anything we can think or imagine, he's going to far exceed. And that's been the story of our lives. We planted ourselves in that seat. The people in front of us who had been inviting us bought me my first real Bible. They soon after that, they asked me to join the worship team. I declined. I said, you know what? That was my idol. And I said, no, thank you. And it took a couple years, 2 or 3 years, before I was willing to even step out, because I said, this is the thing I was ready to put my family on the altar for. And that was the thing, that was a place I wouldn't go. Of course, the week after I made a commitment to Christ, the phone rang of another bunch of musicians and said, we heard you're free. Can you come with us? We're heading to Ohio for this little regional tour. And I said, the only place I'll play from here on out is for Jesus.
That's awesome.
They didn't know how to respond. The phone went dead, but thankfully I did.
That shows the change of your heart, brother.
Yeah, he renewed everything. He took what I thought was real, and that's really the story of my life. It's about truth. I had accepted a lot of things as truth. Anything that that I thought was true, that I got from this world, I began to set aside and reinvestigate.
How did you get involved in what you're doing now then?
Well, what ended up happening was over the years, as I did move back into being in worship and all that, and I was in a church where that was paramount. Excellence with a heart for God was really all what we always went after. Grace, of course, love overwhelming, but pouring into people and having an expectation that if you love on people and you encourage them, they will bring their best. They want to bring their best. Most people don't bring their best, usually because they're not encouraged to. So that atmosphere that I was in allowed me to grow, allowed me to investigate my faith. There was always it was a place of safety to grow in House of Faith. Today, I'm a pastor there. I'm one of the associate pastors. I've been a worship leader there since 2002. But about 2 years ago, almost 2 years ago, we opened Waypoint Youth and Community Center. But it wasn't opened by House of Faith. It was opened by people from 6 different churches in the area.
That's awesome.
Where's that at?
It's in West Newton on 2nd Street, right next to the little restaurant in town, the Chuck Wagon. But we work with middle and high school kids. And the idea is there's a lot of brokenness that we see. I started doing the music thing, and the music thing kind of morphed into something way bigger than it was. When I met Ron the first time, I was actually running an event where we had 15 churches from the area come in for a day of praise. And I've done different kind of events, whether fundraiser or just community churches, and I've lost track of the number of churches we've worked with. As a drummer, for whatever reason, that's a rare commodity today. So I've been asked to play a lot of places because my church meets on a Saturday night. As an alternative to people making bad decisions, I'm often free on Sunday mornings, so I'll get a phone call and say, hey, our drummer's on vacation, or this, that, and the other, can you come? And now it's even, can you bring your worship team? Wow. Well, the worship team that we would bring in and do different events, I realized in short order that if you go in to do an event in a church and you don't ask the people that have been serving faithfully to be involved there, you can really hurt some people's feelings.
Can you just give it real address and everything else for your church too right now? Because
well, our church is in West Newton. It's 170 Taylor Road, West Newton, PA 15089, and our youth center is in the heart of West Newton on South Second, 115 South Second.
Okay, now we have a telephone number. It'll be on our screen too. So
Sure.
if you're out there, and our telephone number is available too, so we can refer right to you, especially in your area.
Oh yeah, and we have a website
We're on
and Facebook.
Cornerstone, you know, and Cornerstone's well known in your particular area, right?
Absolutely.
So you know, it's hard for me to see, and I know where he's coming from, but to think that your wife wasn't saved, she goes to a church, she becomes born again. She comes home to you, right?
She got saved at work.
And then you go to Hungary to read the Bible, right?
Well, once that happened, I don't think I've missed a Saturday since then, to be honest.
You know, I want to promote the church, period. I don't care whether it's Catholic, Baptist, or Presbyterian, but sometimes you can hear the word in whatever church you're in.
Oh yeah.
But you just were so engulfed in what you said. You're God, and that was music.
Yep.
See, we don't have always alcoholics, gamblers, and so forth. There's all kind of addictions that we can be in today, and the most important thing is that pride gets there, and he was ready. He was ready to put his family behind so that he could do this music love. So look in their script today, and maybe there's somebody out there, a young kid or adult, you know, and they crazy music today, you know
right.
that. And maybe you can talk to somebody out there, would you please?
Absolutely. What we find is there's plans and purposes we set up for in our life of the person we think we're going to be, and that doesn't always happen. And you don't when ambition is causing you to become a person that you don't even like to be with, which is what happened to me. It's time for a change. You know, we're designed by God to have a relationship with Him. He's put it in us, and there's nothing that's going to satisfy that. And like what happened to me, God came in, he came into my life, and He changed everything from the inside out to the point now where I have all these different people that I care for, and I found my life because I was willing to give it up and lay it down for Him. But when I realized God was who He says He is, and that He wasn't just watching from far off, that He wanted to be involved in every little part of my life, because He designed me with a purpose before the foundations of the earth to work some things out and to change things not only in my life but the people He put around me. He's called us all to be killers of giants. And so sometimes those giants are our ambition or our talent or whatever the thing is. But just like David threw the stones and he killed it, God's given us some things, and he wants to know each one of you. He wants to know. He knows your drive and your ambitions. He knows your talents and your hopes. But He wants you to realize it's time to lay those things down. Amen. Because He's got something much, much greater if you'll do that. It never works out the way we do, but if you trust in Him, He'll give you perfect peace, and He'll open doors like you wouldn't believe.
Amen.
We just have to really realize we went a different way than maybe what He was calling us to, and we asked for what Jesus did on the cross. He went in our place and took the punishment for our disobedience so that we might be able to have new life in Him. So you just trust in Him. You believe that He did the things that He said He was going to do for you, because He loves you, and He wants to know you, and He wants you to have a fantastic life. And so then we lay down those things. We repent for the things that we did wrong. And we pick up his righteousness. We pick up the goodness that he promised, and we ask the Holy Spirit to come into our hearts, to come and live within us and show us what life really is about, because you don't really live until you do that.
Thank you, Jesus.
And so then that's the big thing for me, Don.
Yes.
Releasing it all to him, and he'll take you places you never
You
realized
heard
you
what
could
he
go.
said, releasing it all. You know, are you going to become perfect? No way.
No.
You will be a Christian under construction. There is no instant McDonald's Christianity on this ministry. You start your walk. Now, if you've heard that testimony of Chris today, we want to tell you something. We'll give you a Bible free. All you got to do is call in on that number. The numbers are on the screen, and we have people answering the phone. And if you want a church, we will recommend a church. But this man's been called to do a certain thing. His God was not different. It was different than mine and Ron's. Ron's was football, mine was basketball, and his was music. And maybe you're one of them people out there today. So call that telephone number. Now, don't forget, God loves you just as you are. Don't worry. You say, well, I don't know how I can quit. You won't be able to quit only because of Jesus. Call that telephone number right now. God bless you, and we love you, and thank you for watching Crossing Paths TV.
Hi, it's my pleasure and honor to announce to you that Crossing Paths Ministries and His Food Ministries have joined forces to fight hunger. Our goal is to bring in 30 families every single week, families of 4, and we feed them every single Monday, Thursday, and Saturday. With your donation to Crossing Paths Ministries, you'll be able to help us help others by fulfilling the Great Commission. And what you're going to see now are some awesome testimonies of lives that have already been changed.
We're a family of 5. As a single income family, we have been so blessed through his food ministry. With $20 a week, we can come Monday, Thursday, and Saturday and get more than a huge box full of food. With local vendors participating like Chick-fil-A, it's delicious food and it's definitely worth the money.
We cannot do this without you. We need your financial support to fight this battle. So please dial that number at the bottom of the screen or go to our website to support us fulfill the Great Commission.
If you would like to support a local family by donating to his food ministry and Crossing Paths, go to crossingpaths.org and click on the Donate Now button.